this evening. And Vice President-elect Pence, I see you walking out, but I hope you will hear us just a few more moments. There's nothing to move here, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing to move here. We're all here sharing a story of love. We have a message for you, sir. We hope that you will hear us out. And I encourage everybody to pull out your phones and tweet and post, because this message needs to be spread far and wide, okay? Vice President-elect Pence, we welcome you and we truly thank you for joining us here at Hamilton, an American Musical. We really do. We, sir, we are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights, sir. But we truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us. All of us. Again, we truly thank you for sharing this show, this wonderful American story told by a diverse group of men and women of different colors, creeds, and orientations.
Oh boy. So that happened. What a shitstorm this thing turned out to be. And it's amazing to me how we watch something like this and everybody gets their hackles up, both left and right. Some people saying boycott Hamilton, some saying, yeah, you stood up to that gay-hating Mike Pence. And even Donald Trump starts talking about in his tweets that there needs to be a safe space in the theater, which is just the whole fucking amazing. I mean, I don't know if he's talked that much about safe spaces in general, but he certainly has been anti-PC, and yet the use of the word safe space right now, whether he meant it in that terminology or not, is now a kind of one of those hair trigger words, dare I say it. And nobody's even bothered to talk to Mike Pence, who was pretty damn magnanimous about the whole situation.
Well, first off, my daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed the show. Hamilton is just an incredible production and incredibly talented people, and it was a real joy to be there. And you know, when we arrived, we heard a few boos and we heard some cheers, and I nudged my kids and reminded them that's what freedom sounds like. And but at the end, I did hear what was said from the stage, and I can tell you, I wasn't offended by what was said. I'll leave to others whether that was the appropriate venue to say it. But I do want to say that the basic element, the center of that message is one that I want to address, and that is I know this is a very disappointing time for people that did not see their candidate win in this national election. I know this is a very anxious time for some people, and I just want to reassure people that what President-elect Donald Trump said on election night, he absolutely meant from the bottom of his heart. He is preparing to be the president of all of the people of the United States of America. And to watch him bringing together people of diverse views, bringing together people that differed with him strongly, seeing him talk to leaders around the world, I just want to reassure every American that in the days ahead, I'm very confident that they're going to see President-elect Donald Trump be a president for all of the people, and we embrace that principle, and we're going to work hard to make that principle every day that we serve.
And just to button Hamilton Gate up, do you want or expect an apology?
Well, as I said, I would leave that to others, whether that was the appropriate venue for that. But you know, I will tell you, Chris, if you haven't seen the show, go to see it. It is a great, great show, and you know, and I'm a real history buff, and so my daughter and I and her cousins really enjoyed it.
Well,
so where does this come from? How's this happen? What is it that started this whole thing? First of all, why does the cast of Hamilton feel the need to tell Mike Pence that he needs to make sure that he takes care of all of us diverse Americans? Well, it's because Mike Pence is believed to be a gay hater. Mike Pence is a proponent of gay conversion therapy, which uses taxpayer money to literally electrocute the gay out of teenagers. Well, that wasn't true. Even Snopes had to say Pence has never stated that he supported the use of electroshocks or gay conversion therapy. So why was this kind of propaganda put on him? Well, kids, this is a big lesson in understanding why authoritarianism is so bad. Why things beget other things, beget other things. You create laws governing people's behavior, and that infringes on their rights in other areas of behavior. And once you infringe on those rights, then you have to go take those to court and deal with certain exceptions. And then when you deal with those exceptions, other things start happening that fuck other people's rights. And instead of just not fucking with people's rights in the first place, it becomes a whole big thing where Mike Pence is now a gay hater and has to be called out in Hamilton. And then now Hamilton is getting boycotted. Now I think you're probably going, what are you talking about? Well, let me take you through a little bit of the history. Back in 1990, the Supreme Court changes the standards for the First Amendment's guarantee of the free exercise of religion. The Supreme Court ruled against 2 Oregon drug and alcohol counselors who had been fired by a private drug rehabilitation organization for ingesting the hallucinogen peyote as part of a religious ceremony at their Native American church. Ingesting peyote was illegal in Oregon. So right here, you've got a law against drugs. And because of that, you're infringing on Native Americans' religious rights because they ingest peyote during their religious ceremonies. So, in 1990, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and Judge Antonin Scalia wrote that allowing someone to break a law because of religious belief would open up the prospect of constitutionally required exemptions from civic obligations of almost every conceivable kind. As a result, governments no longer had to prove a compelling interest for a law that violated somebody's religious belief. Instead, the new test became whether the law was religiously neutral or generally applicable. So, you have a law that, in my opinion, kind of goes against people's freedom to do whatever the hell they want to themselves. You've already restricted a freedom. If they want to take a drug, they should be able to take a drug. This is a libertarian argument, but I don't really consider myself a libertarian or whatever. I'm just looking at it from this specific chain of events that ended up with our wonderful little speech by the Hamilton cast. So, take what he's saying here. What Judge Antonin Scalia is saying here is that if we're going to put laws in place, you can't just say I'm gonna break them because of religious freedom. You know, you can't kill kids in terms of satanic rituals and that sort of thing. But murder laws kind of go against the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So those already would infringe on somebody's rights. But taking a pill, taking peyote, smoking marijuana, does that really infringe on somebody else's rights? I mean, is this just more moralism from a Christian-centered authority from way back in the day that started out with, if you want to go back as far as prohibition? So, okay, now they say you can't just say religious freedom every time you want to do that. Well, the Democrats got all on Twitter about that because, I mean, you can't be messing with the Native American Indians. They're a protected group. So, President Clinton signed a new law, backed by a broad coalition of religious and civil liberties groups. Congress passed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993. Lawmakers said they needed to restore a compelling interest test the Supreme Court rejected in its 1990 decision. So now we have a new law, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. This is fine. The Supreme Court makes a ruling. Congress then can go and make a new law to deal with that ruling so that they can hopefully support the original intent was freedom of religion. I mean, come on, we already had protection of religious freedom. Why do we got to make another law to protect that? Because we've made one law, drug use, that infringes on that. So here the dominoes begin. introduced by Democrats with a near unanimous vote. I think it was 97-3. We'll get to that in a minute. The legislation said the government can substantially burden a person's exercise of religion only if it advances an important government interest and does so in the least restrictive way possible. So Clinton signed the bill. He said it reestablishes a standard that better protects Americans of all faiths in the exercise of their religion. They believe this was a blow for the minorities, the American Indian especially. That's what they believed it was. But as always happens, unintended consequences. The first RFRA was a 1993 federal law that was signed into law by Democratic President Bill Clinton. It unanimously passed the House of Representatives, where it was sponsored by then Congressman Chuck Schumer. Remember that name, kiddos. Chuck Schumer, and sailed through the Senate on a 97-3 vote. 97-3. Republicans and Democrats were all on board with this. 1997, the Supreme Court ruled that Religious Freedom Act, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, doesn't apply to states. And only there's the federal government that can mess with that. The states can still do whatever they want. If they want to put, blue laws in for alcohol or drug consumption, if they want to do different things, they can do that. This was a case involving the Archbishop of San Antonio's dispute with local zoning authorities over a church expansion. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Religious Freedom Restoration Act is unconstitutional as applied to states. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote that Congress lacked the authority to impose the law on the states. He also said Congress hadn't shown a record of extensive denials of religious liberty and had acted out of proportion of what it was trying to achieve. So now the states can do whatever they want. They can impose on religion with their laws. So what happens? The states are going to have to, if they want to allow the Indians to smoke peyote, or if they want to do, deal with local zoning issues with the church, they can tell a church to fuck off unless there's some sort of religious freedom. So now we're getting even deeper into the rabbit hole, kids, because now we've got one law begetting a Supreme Court ruling, begetting another law, begetting another Supreme Court ruling. So now what happens? Well, now the Supreme Court upholds the Religious Freedom Restoration Act at the federal level. In a unanimous decision, the court said a small religious sect could continue to import an hallucinogenic tea in religious ceremonies. The tea contains a drug prohibited by federal law. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that the Religious Freedom Restoration Act requires the government to show a compelling interest in banning the organization's use of the drug for religious purposes, and it had not done so. By the time of the ruling, 13 states had passed their own versions of the federal law in reaction to the court's previous decision that it didn't apply to states. So now the federal one is working. We're protecting religious freedom. Great. And now 13 states are following suit so that they can impose on religious freedom to ingest hallucinogenic teas. Well, then what happens? Well, we fast forward to June 30th, 2014. The Supreme Court upholds a religious challenge to Affordable Care Act. Now, this is when a divided Supreme Court ruled that a closely held corporations can decide for religious reasons not to include contraceptive coverage in health insurance plans offered to employees. Well, holy shit, wait a minute. It's okay for the Indians, but now we can't have it for the Christians. Because the Christians, they hate gays, right? And in Hobby Lobby, they hate women, so they won't pay for contraceptives for people. So now you got to get other people to pay for your stuff, and you can force them to do it because now it's benefiting me. The 5 justices in the majority characterized their opinion as a narrow ruling applying to 4 types of birth control to the 2 family-owned corporations that brought the challenge, the Hobby Lobby craft store chain and the Conestoga Wood Specialties, a Mennonite-owned cabinet maker. But the 4 justices who dissented said the ruling expanded the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to protect companies. Well, what are companies? They're just a bunch of people who buy and sell goods. Why are they not protected to what they want to do? Why are they being told what they have to do and what they can't do? You see, this is where you get more and more authority of people telling people what they can and can't do. And you start having to subdivide and slice these fucking laws up. Instead of just letting people, you don't want to associate with that person, don't. You don't want to work at Hobby Lobby, don't. If they don't want to pay for your stuff, go to it someplace else. But instead, we've ingested this idea. We think it's wonderful, this idea of authoritarian of laws to tell everybody what they can and can't do. And the regressives are far worse about this. But the conservatives certainly have their share of this as well. They are the ones who put in the drug laws in the first place that started this whole cavalcade of nonsense. So what's next? Truth Ruth Bader Ginsburg said the ruling invites for-profit entities to seek religion-based exemptions from regulations they deem offensive to their faith. She said, for example, that a company could decide that covering vaccinations or paying for minimum wage violates their religious belief. And she knows that past religious freedom challenges brought by a restaurant chain that didn't want to serve African Americans in a photography studio, that didn't want to take pictures at a lesbian couple's commitment ceremony. Well, we already have laws, equal rights laws, okay? But quite frankly, and I know you guys are going to hate this, but I'm fine with companies saying, I don't want to serve this person or that person. We have the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason. You don't want, you freedom of association is a big deal. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. And you can reap all the fucking consequences of that as well. And if you go out of business and nobody comes to your store and you can't make any money and you're destitute, I don't give a fuck. If you're that stupid, you deserve what you get. But this idea of forcing people to do what they want to do, this is what causes all this backlash. This is why you get a Trump as goddamn president. Because you push and you push and you push these people until they just backlash out, because you put these laws, and this has been happening for over 2 decades, guys, and this is just one specific thing. I want you to think of the billions of laws that are on the goddamn books that are fucking with you every day. Kevin Russell, a former Supreme Law clerk who argues frequently before the High Court, wrote an analysis after the decision that the court had never decided whether the government had a compelling interest in required by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to ban discrimination based on sex, disability, or sexual orientation. So, again, this is different. This is saying you have to service me. You have to pay for my stuff. And you have to take money out of your pocket to pay for the stuff that I want to do that you wouldn't do because of your religious beliefs. Which is different than saying, I won't serve an African American person. But if a restaurant doesn't want to serve an African American person, good luck with that. And good luck with the boycott and all the bad publicity you're going to get with it. To me, I think that's far more effective than putting out these nebulous, fucked up laws that have to be diced and sliced again and again and again. And then when you screw with it one way to help the one person, you end up fucking the other person. And then and these are people that didn't have anything to do with it half the time. Didn't have to do with the original law in the first place. We're getting fucked by it. I mean, what did the Christians have to do with smoking peyote anyway? Nothing. That's where this all came about. They had nothing to do with it. And yet, now we're up to 2015 and the Hobby Lobby is forced to pay condoms so that Indians can smoke peyote. How crazy is this? So on March 26th, Pence signs the Indiana's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Citing the Supreme Court's decision in the Hobby Lobby case, Pence said Indiana needs its own version of the federal law to ensure religious liberty is fully protected under Indiana law. This is where we come full circle, ladies and gentlemen, because this is when all the flack about the gay bakeries, about gay people going to bakeries and trying to force them to cater their weddings or to make cakes for them. So when the reporter went to the Memories Pizza in Indiana during that whole flack and got them shut down, not the reporter themselves, but reporting on the story saying, you wouldn't want to cater a gay wedding. Again, who would cater a wedding with fucking pizza? But fine. They said they never stopped anybody from going in and out of their restaurant, but they didn't do a lot of catering and they didn't really want to be a part of a gay wedding. Why should they be forced to? This is what it's all about to me. It's all about forcing people. Letting people make their choices, dumb or as stupid as they may be, is so important. And letting them live with those choices and deal with the consequences of those choices. But we don't want to do that. We want to make all these laws, and these laws end up with all these damn unintended consequences. And so now, Indiana became the 20th state to enact such a law, although the laws are not all the same. While Pence compares Indiana's law to the one Illinois created in 1988, Indiana's law protections cover businesses, not just people who believe their religious rights have been infringed. Indiana's law also allows a claim to be made between two private parties, not just the government, according to a fact-checking website. And while Indiana nor Illinois' law mentioned sexual orientation, Indiana's was passed after courts began striking down gay marriage bans. Sponsors and lobbyists for Indiana's law said it could protect Christian businesses from having to provide wedding services to gay couples. So the gay marriage ban probably shouldn't happen. If two people want to be married, that's fine. But then, let's take that back a step further. Why is government involved in marriage in the first fucking place? Because of the tax laws? So you manipulate people to getting married or not getting married by manipulating their incomes? How about you stay the fuck out of it? Then you wouldn't have to worry about bans on gay couples. And the gay couples could go to whatever person that would support them. They want to sponsor the ceremony, they would. Well, what about they can't get, they can't go to the hospital or something? I've never heard of such a thing. And if you could get some widow to die, some rich widow to die and leave all their stuff to her cat, I'm pretty sure somebody could leave all their stuff, if they make their will out and do the work, that they could get it all to their partner. I'm pretty sure that's not a problem. You just have to put the contract in place beforehand. The law reestablished a balancing test for courts to apply in religious cases. This is the RFRA law in general. RFRA allows for a person's free exercise of religion to be substantially burdened by a law only if the law furthers a compelling governmental interest in the least restrictive means, furthering that compelling governmental interest. So let me ask you this. When you make healthcare a public matter, when you get the government to start paying for it, then does that become a compelling governmental interest? But housing? The more and more the government starts providing, the more and more compelling governmental interests there are. The more compelling governmental interests there are to fuck with your religious freedom or your freedom of speech. This is why it's so dangerous, guys. And it doesn't mean that a person making a religious claim will always win. In the years since RFRA has been on the book, sometimes the courts have ruled in favor of religious exemptions, but many other times they haven't. So once more, here's the federal law. Government may substantially burden a person's exercise of religion only if it demonstrates that application of burden to the person, 1, is in furtherance of a compelling governmental interest, and 2, is the least restrictive means of furthering that compelling governmental interest. And here's the Indiana law that Mike Pence signed in. A governmental entity may substantially burden a person's exercise of religion only if the governmental entity demonstrates that the application of the burden to the person is, 1, in furtherance of a compelling governmental interest, and 2, is the least restrictive means of furthering that compelling governmental interest. So, after 26 years, when Bill Clinton signs in the law that Chuck Schumer sponsors and passes 97-3 because it protected the American Indians to smoke peyote, now it protects Christians from being forced or compelled to supply condoms or cater gay weddings. And Mike Pence is a gay-hating, homophobic bastard who needs to be told respectfully at the Hamilton play to make sure that he protects all of us because of his obvious gay-hating past. And that's what this is all about, people. See, the people at Hamilton, they're free to exercise that free speech. I get it. But we're being manipulated back and forth to whatever group, in-group or out-group, that has a particular interest. And when one group's interest gets fulfilled, what usually happens is another group's interest gets fucked. And over the course of 23 years, you could see what the stacking up and slicing and dicing of policy turns into. Oh, by the way, Chuck Schumer, well, he put out a tweet during that whole Flak saying, hey, NCAA, if you're looking for a new place to hold the 2021 Final Four, New York has plenty of great venues that don't discriminate because of the Indiana law, which was exactly like the federal law that Chuck Schumer sponsored. We still haven't gotten an answer from him for that. So, guys, it's not always that simple as are we changing back and forth and everything. We wouldn't have to if we didn't have this crazy authoritarian laws telling us on each little minuscule thing that we're doing in our own lives that offends somebody else. If they weren't there, if we would just say, fuck it, if they want to do what they want to do, that's fine. And I'll do what I want to do, and that's fine. And then this wouldn't be a problem, and we wouldn't have these retarded stories coming up. So let's just go over this one more time. Feds put in a law to protect the American Indian and their religious freedom to smoke peyote. Come to find out, the law is not protected in states. Then Supreme Court upholds the law on the federal level, which means that the law is good, and that people can be protected on their religious freedom, something that always is in the First Amendment. But it's not on the state level, so the states now have to do their own laws. And as the culture gets more SJW, we find out that these laws that were put in to protect the American Indian is now protecting those hated Christians. And so when Mike Pence puts in the same law that was put in by Democrats and Chuck Schumer in 1993, he's now a religious bigot. And that whole Flak happens, and then nobody remembers any of this. Nobody remembers all of those steps that took us to get here. All they remember is, Mike Pence is kind of a religious nut and probably hates gays. And then that gets into people's heads. And next thing you know, the cast of Hamilton is kind of looking down their nose and letting him know that he better make sure that he remembers that there's more people in the United States than just white men. Well, this didn't come out of nowhere. These kind of weirdo attitudes didn't come out of nowhere. This has been building up and building up and building up for 3-4 decades. And we are seeing the symptoms of this. So, there you go. So, did you like this video? I hope you did. You can hit that subscribe button right there. We've got a couple of other videos up here by the side. Take a look at them and comment. I would like to hear your comments on what you think. And that's about it for today. I do have a new video coming up on, it's going to take me a while to make. It's going to be similar to the PCU. I want to show how, it's going to be about Ghostbusters. 2016 or 1984? Yes. So enjoy that. Keep looking out for that. It's going to take me some time, but I'll get it done, and I'll keep trying to throw up videos whenever I can. Thanks for watching.